Well, happy Saturday night. Welcome to the Bowtie Treasure Studio. I'm Aaron. I'm a Dixie Belle content creator, a Would You Bend brand ambassador, and I'm always happy to be here with you all, ready to go in the studio. As you jump in here tonight, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. Let us know what you're up to. Let me show you real quick what I'm talking about. The last time I did something like this was this project here. I titled this project Journey. I think I did it about a year or so ago. And in fact, if you follow me on Facebook and you search my Bowtie Treasures Facebook page for the title Journey, you should be able to see this project. I did like a tutorial, not painting, but walk through the process. Anyways, I really loved how that turned out, and I thought there's no, what better way to, I guess, pay tribute to that piece and do it again, right? I'm not doing exactly the same technique, but very much inspired by, so I'm gonna walk you all through a lot of the steps that I've done on that project. So there's so many layers and steps. In fact, I had to write it down so I can remember not to miss anything that I want to do tonight. I can't guarantee that I'm going to get it all done tonight, so be sure to be in the group for chalk paint enthusiasts. I like to post my work there, and then also be sure to follow me on Facebook. I did work on this piece last night. I usually go live Friday nights on my page, and so we did this step the work here last night. I've already coated this with Gray Boss. The top portion is drop cloth. This portion is sandbar. So that part's done. And what I've done is so this is where I did last night. We'll work on this first. These are steps that we'll get to. So I've already kind of prepared this part so that while this part's drying, I can go to the next step down here. So this is kind of where we're headed. And I'm gonna walk you through those projects together. So holler at a friend, let them know we're live tonight, and we will have fun working on this project tonight. Last night I also on my Facebook page demonstrated, I applied 2 sections of a Would You Bend, and I wrote the number down. This is 1354 on Dixie Belle's website, but you'll notice that I actually only used the lower section. You could heat this up, and I used an X-Acto knife and just cut out. I used this part on another project, so you can multi-purpose these Would You Bend moldings, and so that's what I did. I demonstrated how applying that last night. So this part has also been painted, and we may or may not work on that tonight. We'll see how it goes. But I wanted to highlight the Would You Bend products on Dixie Belle's website. This set 1354 comes in a pair, so it really is probably one of my top used Would You Bend sets, and you can see the link to Dixie Belle's website in the description of this live, so I'd love for you to use that link. Deep breath, because there's so much to do. I hope we can get it all done. I'm going to stay alive as long as I can so you guys can see the steps, but if I get to a point I just can't continue, we'll stop there. How about that? Okay. This is a Jacobian antique buffet, just so we're talking on the same on what we did, but I'm gonna move if everything goes well tonight, I'm also going to hopefully do a little bit of stencil work. Because the buffet is a little bit larger, I'm gonna do my best to keep the whole piece in view. All right, so just to review colors again, and I put most of the colors in the description. This is drop cloth, this is sandbar, and I just did a really rough overlap of color. And I want to show you all this too, because I want to be upfront that the only thing I did on the side was glue this veneer, so it was not, the damage is going to play a role, and here you can see the dry brushing technique. So in a project like this, and if you check out that project I mentioned a while ago called Journey, sometimes you have to embrace the damage, the history, the character, and you just roll with it, right? And I'm not going to sweat. I could patch this and sand it, but it has so many flaws in character. I don't want to lose all that, nor do I want to make it like it's not there. Okay, so we're going to take vintage duck egg, and all I'm going to do in this case is I'm just looking for places to, think of the right word, not bury, but just infuse this color into some of the darker areas. So I'm not painting the whole piece, I'm just putting it where the darker shadows would be. Y'all hear me use the word shading a lot, so it's almost like I'm shading. So I'm looking for cracks and crevices and low areas, and I'm just pushing it in there really fast, not trying to this is all, a lot of this is going to be covered up, but there'll be hints of it showing when I'm done with the process. So you're really just teasing a little bit. So here I'm only putting it in the lower areas. Work quickly. It doesn't have to be pretty. As I said, we're going to cover a lot of this up, and this is the kind of thing that you're going to see, a customer will see when they get closer. It's almost like you're putting in little surprises and touches of highlights, but it's just a way that I think works really well. So you adapt the techniques tonight however you feel works for you. I'm going to be demonstrating a lot of techniques tonight, so take it or leave it. You can mix and do a different order. In fact, the Journey project, I did this work before a little sooner in this stage than I am on this one. So the process or order can be varied. Tonight we're going to do a wash. Well, the wash could be done before you do this or after. For me, the wash allows me to tone down color. For the Journey project, it was very much very bold, bright colors, and I wanted to really tone it down. Vintage duck egg, I would not consider it to be bright and bold, so I'm not too concerned about heavily covering it up. See how easy that was? Just scribble it on there. Now everything has a layer of that vintage duck egg. The next color I used is Terracotta. Let me just make a clarifying statement. This is Terracotta, right in the middle there. There we go. But if you go look for Terracotta, you can only buy Terracotta in 16 ounces now. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that, because if you go and try and find it, you may not find it. So Terracotta, I'm going to use less not as much as vintage duck egg, and you can see that I put a few here. I stopped about right here. So sometimes for this technique, I don't have the opportunity tonight, but it's good to let the other colors dry. But I'm kind of escalating the process a little bit tonight just for the sake of the demonstration. Just going to be careful that I don't overlap too much any wet vintage duck egg. So again, just looking for a few places to touch. Just get it on there. Feel free to look at, looks like I missed this side over here. Unfortunately, I don't have a cameraman following me around, so you're gonna miss. I apologize if I'm working off camera a little bit, but I'm really doing the same step. Unfortunately, this paint's a little thick, and if your paint ever gets like that in this stage, you might want to go back with a sanding sponge like Dixie Belle's sanding sponge and just do a nice light sanding just to smooth out any raised paint, unless you want that texture, and I really don't mind it actually. So again, I'm just hitting a few areas, and we might even come back at the end of the project and add some more, but I want some of this to be kind of lost underneath the wash. Okay, so just, if you ask how do you know how much to put on, I don't. I don't want as much as vintage duck egg, and so I think the key is keep it random. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is a wash. And the wash isn't, you don't have to do a wash, but the nice thing about the wash that I'm going to do, it's going to allow these colors to still be there but not be so potent. Okay, in order to do a wash, I usually have a little container, whatever. I think I've had this for 4 years, and it's such a versatile container. Everybody needs their Old Faithful container. Okay, I'm gonna grab buttercream, and I tried to think about, well, what color do I want? As you can see, I have a lot of colors down here. I haven't used them all, but I'm trying to be prepared. But buttercream is lighter than sandbar, and I really wanted the color lighter than I'm sorry, this is drop cloth, this is sandbar. I wanted it to be lighter than drop cloth. I wish I had a great reason other than the fact that I just think just felt, based on experience, I guess, it was the color I wanted to use. And I'm trying not to duplicate exactly what I did on the Journey project, but so just sit back and relax, I guess, right? Okay, I'm gonna use a mini, and the reason for a mini is because I want a large washable area. Another brush of recommendation you can try is the Scarlet. This one works well with washes. It's, in fact, I'm pretty sure if you look it up, this is the kind of brush that was made for faux finishes and washes anyway. Why don't we just use it? How about that? So I'm gonna take that little bit of water. You can't really see. How about let's move the camera down. So just a little bit of water. How much? I'm just winging it. Okay, and I'm just going to mix it in the bowl. I don't think that I've made enough. Okay. Gut feeling tells me it's better to make more than, so let's back up the train a little bit, add a little bit more in there. It's easier to make more than it is to redo it, so let's go with that plan. I always like using my Mr. bottle water because it's always handy. I don't have to dip into a bucket, so that's my studio tip there. Okay, I don't think my camera wants to do that. I'm gonna wait, there we go. So again, just loosen that paint up really wet. If you watched my lives before, I've done things like this before, and you probably know that I'm gonna bring out my rag next because I wanna lift some of that off. This is like a, it's almost like a whitewash. Excuse me as I clean up my floor. I'm moving the speed of light right now, so things are crazy. Okay. Let's focus on this middle panel. I know from about here over, it's dry. And I purposely did this earlier today so that we were ready for my live. So here we go. This is buttercream. This is wet down here, so I'm not gonna go all the way down. Okay, so I'm using the Scarlet. You can use any brush you want. I just like the wide surface. And you're probably like, why are you covering up all that work? I kind of am, but I'm not, meaning I'm about to wipe some of this off. This is neutralizing. What I mean by that is unifying. When you put a wash over your piece, you're unifying the entire piece together. Everything has a wash. Everything will feel unified because of that. It doesn't mean if I was just taking straight paint, it would be too hard to get that paint off, and I don't want to do that. So we'll just do that right there. Okay, so you can see on the left. Now it's where I'm going to take my rag. And here's where I want to start lifting. And this rag's going to give it texture too, which we want on this piece. I don't want it to be smooth. This is not a Rembrandt piece that is flawless. I probably wouldn't be doing this technique on a piece that had no veneer problems, had no nicks, and like it was a. I don't really care so much that I can't see all the first layer of work, like this stuff right here. That's just part of the process to give it depth. So I'm not lifting all of the color off. And I'll prove that. You can see there's the vintage duck egg, there's the terracotta, it's there. But now it's not stealing the show like this might be. You know, that's kind of messy and sloppy. But this is the beginning of the, so my post tonight, the title of my post was Layers on Layers. This is how I do layers on layers, okay? This is the way you become an advanced furniture painter, if you will. I'm not saying that I'm there, but when you can start experimenting with layers, that's when your work gets a little bit more advanced and your work stands out, or at least is different. Okay. So you see the difference between covered and not covered. So that's the fun of this. Is all experimentation. You don't know until you try it. So I'm doing the experimenting for you, okay? I'm trying to get my camera to get you guys the full view. So I still got plenty of liquid here. It's nice and wet. I do have to be careful. There are some areas where the terracotta is a little wet. And the disadvantage for me tonight is that if I don't completely do the whole piece with this wash, I could get my wash mixture wrong. One thing I've done in the past is I've put this into a Ziploc bag and I can come back later on and finish. Like if you need something to dry, for example. So this is buttercream. You can use whatever color you want for this. Cotton, if you want white. Maybe you want to try something like a light teal, like sea glass. Doesn't, you know, whatever you want. You see how I'm just laying it on there? I can go up and down because when I bring in my rag, it's going to take care of any of those directional lines I may put in there. See, it's a little wet over there, so I need to not go any further. That's, again, I wanted you guys to see the process, so I didn't do all the steps on the whole piece. So I'm just letting some of that previous work peek through. The rag's got plenty of, you know, texture. You can use a sponge, maybe. Newspaper, paper towel, whatever you think would do the job if you want to do this. And if you feel like you're if you're wiping too much off, it could be that your wash is too thin. Like if you can see too much of the vintage duck egg, there's nothing wrong with coming back and putting another wash over it and just tone it back. This is where you as the artist need to determine how much, how little, but it's a process, okay? One thing you'll find oftentimes when you're doing this is that you're gonna have buildup of the water. Sometimes it might happen in the crevice or at the bottom. You can wipe that off as much as you want. Okay, so bottom line is, if I go back to, this is where I was earlier, now this is starting to come together as a little bit more of a cohesive look. I really want to get this post done because this post is previously painted and I really want to do a next step on this post. So give me a second to do this and I'm going to come back. If I have to, I don't want to, if I have to, I will bring out my heat gun and dry a section because again, I actually want to do a stencil tonight. So I want to show some stenciling, but I have to have a dry surface, but we'll get it dry. I'm almost out of wash, so if you're really particular about having to know exactly what your mix is, then I suggest that you use some kind of measuring device and say, okay, 1 part water, or 3 part water to 1 part paint. I rarely do that unless I'm dealing with something for a client piece. I've had that kind of come back and bite me a little bit because I had someone say, I really love what you did with that. And I'm like, ooh, I have no idea what my mixture was. So I had to be upfront with the client and say, I can't guarantee you I can match the ratio. So sometimes you get so creative and somebody wants you to replicate it and you're like, So note to self. You'd be surprised how often I go back and watch my own videos just so I can remember what I did. Okay, so sometimes I might need to come back and just hit an area I forgot or missed. So just to compare, this one has the wash. As you know, that one does not. So I'm liking where that's going. Just keep an eye on things from a standpoint of, does it need a little bit of a touch of extra wash? I'm gonna put a little bit more on it. You just don't know till you do it, right? You don't know if it's thick enough or wide enough, or just don't stress, just have fun. You can go back and put another coat of wash on if you need to. Sometimes if you really like layers, come back with another color and wash it with something else, like a light gray, tone it down. Hopefully you're liking the process so far. It's gonna come together. So remember the top color up here is drop cloth. Since I washed this with buttercream, I want this stencil to be subtle. I'm hoping that going back to drop cloth, not introducing yet another color, would be a good move. One of the things I like to do with my stencils is I like to use Dixie Belle's Oval Small. And main reason for that is the Oval Small has a flat, blunt edge. Unfortunately, it looks like I forgot to clean it last time I stenciled, so there's some gray in there. Hopefully it doesn't become an issue. Now, if you need to, tape this off. But I'm not going to. I'm going to use, I just discharged some extra paint off onto my table. What I'm going to do here is I'm a big fan of just, I don't want to go all the way to the edge. What I mean is, you see how there's an edge this here? I can't really get the stencil all the way in there anyway. So I'm going to fade this stencil out. I don't even know. I need to see if this is even going to show up. I have a feeling what's going to happen is you're not going to see it where I already had drop cloth. Let's see. So it's got a little bit of raised. I think it's going to be one of those things where the lights, let me change the angle. It's there. And I think it might be just what I want. So down below, it's pretty cool. And up top, you can see it there. But in the middle, it's not. But guess what? That's where the hardware is going. The subtle ghosted stencil. You should be able to see that. And I think that's kind of a cool surprise. I'm going to do what we would call shading. New color to tonight, coffee bean. Another color that I like to do this with is chocolate. But one of the disadvantages that I find with chocolate when doing this is chocolate is very brown. In this case, I want more of a rugged, almost black gray. I usually let the piece dictate what I use for shading. Things like Stormy Seas is really nice, works really well. Okay, I remember what I was doing. There we go. So I'm going to use my misting bottle. You're like, didn't you just dry that? Yeah, but I need the surface wet. I'm going to take just a touch of coffee bean, and I don't want a lot. What we're simulating here is dirt. And this is another situation where you put on as much or as little as you want. If you even want to use Dixie dirt, You want to move quickly and keep it wet, or you're going to lose your workable time, okay? Remember, layers on layers on layers. That's what we're doing. And I'm just rushing this process because now I'm softening it. You don't have to soften it with a brush. You pick the brush. I'm using a French tip right now because I can get into the crevices. Keep your misting bottle handy. I was demonstrating shading on my last YouTube video. If you haven't seen me do that before, I go into depth on how to do that. We sometimes we'll call it antiquing. So you see how I'm kind of pushing it in there, but I really am softening it. I apologize if I keep popping into the camera, but now I am going to go ahead with my other rag, and I'm just going to lightly wipe off some of this on the high points where I don't really want it super dark. And by doing that, I'm almost highlighting or bringing the highlights. I don't want it out. I really want the darks pushed into the dark areas. So by getting it in there and then wiping off, you're basically creating that feeling that the darks are accentuated. Wipe off as little or as much as you want, but don't wipe off in the crevices where you just worked hard to get darker paint. I have one more step. I'm going to go up just a little bit. 1 second. All right, here's where the next thing I want to do, and this will probably finish us off. So I'm going back to drop cloth. So we just finished pushing paint into the crevices, right? Now we're just going to hit the edges. You'd want to be careful not to do too bright, like white. And notice how I'm just see how I'm dragging sideways? I'm just kind of kissing. If you feel like you got too much, just wipe it off real fast or spray and wipe it off and do it again. After a little bit, your brush is going to be almost, this is an old 1-inch. I always like to keep the old ones because they start getting this kind of custom like feather, you know, it's not brand new anymore. But see how I'm hitting those, just dragging it. I'm telling you, artists, you do stuff like this, you're just going to sit back and go, how in the world did I do that? Well, you did it because you just kept adding layers. And next thing you know, it's telling a complicated, in-depth story that you didn't know you were capable of. But this is the kind of fun that I like to do when I can. I don't always do this. Like I got a set of nightstands behind me. I'm not going to do all this work on it. But let's take a look at it. Do you see all that texture goodness? I don't know how many brushes touch this, but we bossed it. It has sandbar. It has the vintage duck egg, terracotta, a wash, coffee bean, and now drop cloth. So you totally got this, right? You can do this. So that's kind of the process. Whoops, sorry. That's the process this whole piece will kind of take on. And it doesn't take a long time, it just takes a process. You need to, you know, like I did, write a list and stick to it. One more step. Since I have the coffee bean out still, let's put a little shading on here. Just so that when you see the whole piece done, you go, hey, you didn't demonstrate that shading. I'm just going to come in here with coffee bean. Again, this could be something like Stormy Seas. If you want to equate this to black wax, it's the general idea. Keep it wet, mist first, apply. You don't have to do the whole panel. Sometimes I'll do one side, then come back and do the other. Mist it. Come back to my French tip. And a lot of the cabinet will get this as well. I want all of these details to pop, and I'll come back and I will hit the high points with drop cloth or buttercream too. So these will pop. If you like a bit of glam, which I don't know that I'll do on this one, come back with some gilding wax and highlight some of the decorative elements like this medallion with some gilding wax. I can't guarantee I won't do that, but I usually wait till the end to decide that. So look how great that little depth made that pop. I hope I didn't miss anything. I think I tried to make a list of everything I needed to do. So when you see this piece done in a week or so, you're gonna go, got to see all of it. I know how you did that. But most of all, I want you to go try it, all right? And we'd love to see your work that this demonstration tonight inspired. If you haven't done so after this live, go follow on Facebook or Instagram. Definitely check out my tutorials on YouTube. Anyways, I'm gonna go relax. You do the same, sit back, check out some more work. As a Dixie Belle content creator, it's my privilege to be here with you tonight. Gonna take me a while to clean up after this one, but I hope that helps. Glad to do it. I'm Aaron with Bowtie Treasures, Dixie Belle content creator. So glad to be here with you tonight here in the Bowtie Treasures studio. Y'all have a great weekend. Go do something awesome. Be creative. We'll talk to you later. All right, see you later. Bye-bye.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.